about to hear a revolution in talk radio, Liberty Talk Radio, where the critical thinking will defrag your mind of propaganda-ridden viruses induced by mass media news programming. No BS here, just the facts.
And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Welcome, everyone, to Liberty Talk Radio. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano. This morning, we have an exciting program. We have calling in Austin Green. He's the CEO and president of FreeMind Films. The most notable productions, and some of you may have seen them, has been A Noble Lie, and that's about the Oklahoma City bombing, 1995. And the second film, State of Mind, The Psychology of Control. Two phenomenal movies, did very, very well. His latest production is entitled Shadow Ring, a story of Americans' hidden oligarchy, which has manipulated American policy through the virtually unknown Council of Foreign Relations, better known as CFR. Austin has 20 years of media experience, including documentaries, music videos, and conceptual multimedia projects. Shadow Ring is narrated by Kevin Sorbo, award-winning actor, writer and producer, but best known for a starring role as Hercules from 1993 to 1996. In fact, it was the number one watched program on television. Now, Austin we had a little problem with our connections, so Sorbo was going to be videoed in, and now he's going to be called in. He's just calling in, so you'll have to look at my beautiful puss for a while. And while we are broadcasting, do we have Austin on the phone yet?
No.
He's a slow dialer. We do not have Austin on the phone yet. Well, folks, I want to mention something. I'm going to kill some time, but this is important. What was interesting of the front page, folks, of the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. This is interesting. It says, Iraqi forces, with help from Iran, reclaim parts of key city. Now, this is underneath their major headline on page 1. Now, just think of that for a minute. You have Iraqi forces fighting side by side with the Iranian forces to rid themselves of, ISIS or whatever you want to call that group. Now, my point in saying that, in mentioning that, is that I have been screaming for years, is that if we just leave everyone alone, they will solve their own problems. Back 25 years ago or so, we backed the regime, actually installed the regime of Saddam Hussein. We supplied him with weapons of mass destruction, nerve gas and all that other stuff, right? So that they can become the enemy of Iran because of the Ayatollah at the time and whatever. And the thought was that if we have control of Iraq, which was one of the largest oil producers in the world, and if they can defeat Iran in a war of which we spent billions and billions of dollars supporting the Saddam Hussein regime, then we would have almost total control of the oil supply in the Middle East. Now, that would exclude, obviously, Saudi Arabia, of which we had tremendous influence, but would exclude Russia. And, of course, this would put Russia, on the backstop, and they would have to somehow respond, I guess. And I don't know how they would have responded, but I don't think it would have been very pretty. And so what's interesting is here we are. We're out of Iran, and we've been out of Iran for a long time, but now we vilify everything Iran does, and they've done absolutely nothing wrong, right? We depose Saddam Hussein, right? Install another puppet in there, under the guise of him being responsible for 9/11. I mean, we concoct all these stupid stories, and what bothers me is that everyone believes them. I mean, we believe them. Understand that war is the health of the state. War is the health of the state. Without war, the state hardly exists. In fact, the power reverts slowly but surely back to the people. And every time the people gain power, when I say power, I mean they retain their rights. Their rights become more embedded in society. Every single time that happens, guess what occurs? Another war. Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't know who ISIS is. I don't know why they're fighting, who they're fighting, and quite frankly, I don't care. And yet, in our news broadcast, what do we hear? You turn on the news, ISIS this, ISIS that, ISIL, ICE. You know, they have, and I guess ICE stands for, ISIL stands for the Islamic Society of Iran and the Levant. And Levant is very loosely translated. There's no real translation for that word from the Arabic point of view to English, but it means the area, the whole area, the commonality of that area. So what these people are doing, what ISIS is doing, whoever they may be, is they are attempting to take back control of the area. They don't care about the lines of demarcation established by the British, the French, and the United States after World War II. For example, Iraq is a state which was designed by the Western powers after World War II. It wasn't a naturally occurring state. Of course, if it was, the Kurds would not be part of Iraq. They would have their own state, which they should. It's sort of like Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia now is broken up into several different small countries, and they're all striving for their own identity. The Middle East is doing the same thing, but we keep on interfering with them. Now, what I don't understand is that why don't, when I turn on the TV, hear about all of the crime that is being perpetrated as a result of the war on drugs? Why don't we hear about all of the bloodshed between the Bloods and the Crips? You know, things like, no, we don't. We hear about the counterparts of the Bloods and the Crips in the Middle East, 7,000 miles away. And I'm supposed to be concerned about that. And I'm really tired, really sick and tired of that response that I receive from all of these people who have some sort of political ideology that they believe in, and which makes no sense whatsoever. And they say, well, if we don't fight them there, they'll fight us here. Says who? Prove that to me. I mean, I have never woken up once in my life and saw an ISIS tank, an ISIS convoy come down my street. But I have seen, people who should be locked up, probably locked up, who have invaded our neighborhoods and broken into houses. Why don't we talk about that? Why is this occurring? But no, we talk about something that's happened 7,000 miles away, and we do it under the guise of it's to protect our freedom. It's our war on terror. Well, I want to have another war. I mean, I think our war on terror is much too limited. I mean, if we're going to do this, if we're going to be really stupid, let's be really stupid, okay? Let's be the nation of stupidity. Now, let's not just play around with it. Why don't we have a war on badness, all right? The war on evil, all right? We'll have this war on badness and evil, and anytime there's any sort of perception of evil or badness in the world, we'll just send a whole bunch of troops, whether it be in the United States, anywhere around the world. Now you say, well, Joe, that's stupid. You're an idiot. I know I'm an idiot, but that's another point. But my point being is that what's the difference between the war on error, the war on evil, and the war on terror? There is none. But yet we talk about it every day. And all of these prostitutes, I know that's what Gerald Swante calls them, prostitutes. I mean, they're real linguistic prostitutes. Let me call them, I'm going to give them a new term. I just made that up. Linguistic prostitutes on television that continually spout everything that they hear they're told to say. They read scorecards. They read the screen, you know. I don't have a screen here. I wish someone would write it. I would read it and then be done with it. You know, no, I have to come up with this stuff myself. I have to tell you what I feel. It's not what they feel. They're not telling you this is the way. What the news is supposed to be, the news is supposed to be the eyes and ears for the public. Not the broadcasters for the major military industrial complex, which it is. Because the major corporations are all involved in manufacture of war machinery. They're all involved in that. They all make money. There's no money in peace. The only people who gain during peace is the individual. Is you and I. If we were a peaceful nation and we stopped spending $1 trillion a year on war machinery and we just had a strong national defense, we would be an incredibly wealthy nation. We would have a strong dollar. All right, we have someone on the line now. Is this here? I guess 405. I think our guest is on the line now. Let's see. What am I doing? Here we go. Austin, is that you?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Austin. I'm sorry. I don't know how we got this thing fouled up, but we were starting at 8 o'clock. I don't know.
Oh, that's we're in the middle of finishing up this movie, and so the wires get crossed on a daily basis. So I do apologize.
Okay. Well, yeah, we did want to have you on our on video because now they have to look at my puss for the whole, for the next 45 minutes, and I think most people find that repugnant.
I don't think I would look much better, to be honest with you, Joe.
Well, I'm sure you're a vast improvement from what they're seeing now. Anyway, I want to thank you so much for being on the program this morning. I already gave an introduction. And I'm gonna have some fun with you. You don't mind if I give you a hard time, do you?
No, sure.
All right. Well, I know there are people who are courageous enough to end their life by throwing themselves off a cliff and onto jagged rocks. Now, people who are not of that persuasion produce documentaries. Is that true?
Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I did. And I figured.
Yes, I would say there's a certain amount of truth.
There's a certain amount of truth, and I figured those people who are not talented enough, as myself, that don't have the talent and the knowledge and the smarts to produce a movie, become a talk show host. Are you with me on that one?
Well, I suppose there's probably some truth to that as well. But again, you never really know what's inside someone's heart until they fully find that potential within themselves and go out there in the world and do something with it. But I think that whether it's you or me doing what I'm doing, ultimately we're all trying to get to the same place here. So
okay, well, I'd like to what I have to start right from the very beginning because I always tell stories of how I got into radio. And I was on commercial radio, and now I'm just on the internet, and now I may be going back to commercial radio and the internet. So life takes its turns. What was the motivation for you to say, all right, we're going to make the very first movie, A Noble Lie, which I thought was an absolutely fantastic, insightful movie. I've seen it more than twice, and every time I watch it, I go, geez, we should have this on mainstream television. This is what our news broadcasters, our verbal prostitutes should be talking about, and yet you hear nothing but obviously garbage from television. I never watched the stupid stuff, but what possessed you to take that subject and then actually make a documentary out of it?
Well, I mean, the research had been done for about 17 years before I came on board to actually turn it into a film that was watchable. So there were a lot of people who had put a lot of time and money and energy into making that film happen before I came along. But I think that once we got the first one done and everyone saw how much potential there was here to reach millions of people worldwide with this message, a message of freedom, a message of anti-government corruption, a message of liberty, whatever you want to call it, we said, well, we have to keep going with this because the response was just too overwhelmingly positive from our audience and from critics alike. And we said, we're just going to keep going with it. And that's what we did with State of Mind. And now that's what we're about to do again with our third film, Shattering, which should hit hit the shelves on about April 14th, I believe, is what we're looking at.
Right. I understand that. Now, in the interest of full disclosure to the audience, I had not been asked to invest in A Noble Lie nor the State of Mind film, but I was asked to be an investor, participate as an investor in Shadow Ring, which I did. So I want you to know that I have a financial interest in this, and I did so not so much from an investment point of view, but I did so because I felt that I should support the community that is supporting the philosophy of freedom and justice and whatever, and move us forward. I want to put my money where my mouth is. And that's why I did that. And I do believe in what you guys are doing. If I didn't, because I get solicited, believe me, 3 times a day to become part of something or invest in something or contribute. I couldn't do it. I have to be very, very picky. And I thought this was a good investment, no matter which way you cut the cake. But let me tell you my problem with documentaries, and please respond to this because it really bothers me. There seems to be a bifurcation in our society whereby you have the majority of the people are political ideologues. In other words, I'm a progressive, I'm a conservative, or whatever. People categorize themselves. They make this stainless steel box in which they put all of the ingredients for that particular political ideology, and there's no way they're going to let loose of it. How do we get? That's fraction number one. The second fraction, the person who has no box, and that's like person like me, a no box. I want to hear everything. I want it to be logical. I want to understand it. I want people to be rational, and I want it to be logical. And don't give me crap like this is the war on terror stuff. So you have these, and of course we're the minority. We're in the minority. How do you get people to break open that box, that political ideological box, to watch a film like this and to give them what they really need is that aha moment, like, oh my God, why didn't I realize this 25 years ago?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the question that we ask ourselves every day as we do what we do. It's not an easy answer. I mean, that is the answer, is that every single person that you meet is different, and they've gone through different things, and they have different experiences that have led them to this point in their life. And some people are closed off simply because they have a vested interest in believing in the lie. And some people are closed off simply because they've never had anybody more educated tell them anything different. And I think that on both sides of the fence there's an opportunity for people like us to kind of step in there and say, well, this is the truth as we see it. Now, maybe we're not the smartest people in the world, but we're certainly not idiots. I think that if you took an IQ test, we'd all probably rank pretty high. And so, people that want to just label us as conspiracy theorists and immediately dismiss what we have to say, those people are shutting their brain down before they even give it a chance to use, or give a chance to use it, right? And so I just encourage everybody that watches our films just to keep an open mind and then take the information in and decide for yourself if you think it's worthwhile. But what we've found is that even people on both sides of the fence, whether they're ignorant or they're holding on to it for some other reason, once they see our films, for whatever reason, it does kind of tend to give them that aha moment. And everybody that I've talked to that's watched this come back to me and said, I was able to show it to this person, my family, or show it to this person, my family, and it was that thing that we needed, that catalyst we needed to get people to start thinking critically and looking at the world objectively, which is what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, well, see, I admit I'm ignorant. Please tell me whatever I'm saying is wrong. And now people come back and they say, well, that's because we have the war on terror. I mean, they don't give me a rational reason or explanation as to why my thinking is wrong or is misguided. They just repeat what they hear on television. I said, well, that's what I'm talking against. That's not the reason. Yeah. That's not helping me. Help me understand why I'm wrong, because if you can tell me that, I'd be more than happy to change on a dime. No problem at all. I'm with you if you can just explain it to me, but they can never do that. Now, I recall one time I had when I was on 1170 KFAQ, I had a fellow who just came back from Afghanistan. I was talking about war. I hate war because war enriches the state and impoverishes the people, including, taking the people's offspring, their sons and their daughters, and they put them through the ringer, die, get killed, maimed, and everything, all for the state, and the state makes money on that. And people don't want to look at it that way. But he called and he objected to everything I said. And I said, all right. And I said, we don't have time to go through each one. I said, but this guy's name was Mike, just back from Afghanistan. And I said, answer this one question for me. Does the government lie always, most of the time, sometimes rarely, or never? And without hesitation, and I never forget this, there was not even it was less than a fraction of a second. He said, always. And then when he said that, it was like he went through an epiphany just saying that. And the mic went dead. I said, Mike, you still there? He said, yeah. He said, I see. I mean, he actually said, I see the light. And it was amazing. People at the cafe, they were doing cartwheels in the hall. They just couldn't believe that someone actually agreed with me, But, I mean, he came to a realization just by saying always. Now, how do we get people to do that? How does this film motivate people to say, Aunt Margaret's got to watch this film. She's a neocon or she's a progressive. She's got to watch this film.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head there for sure.
Are you still there?
Sorry, I'm having a bit of technical difficulty here. You were breaking up on me.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's my cell phone reception. I apologize.
Oh, you're on
What
your
was that
cell
last
phone.
part
Okay.
you said?
I think we're having communications problems.
Yeah, I think we're getting a little bit of interference. Let me see if I can move around here.
Okay. What we have here, folks, is a failure to communicate. Which movie was that? I'm asking my board operator.
I don't know what movie it was. I remember the Guns N' Roses song.
How about that? Is that a little better?
Let me ask my board operator.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Yeah, you got the okay from the board
sorry.
operator.
I do apologize for that.
Yeah, he's just one notch below God. I'll tell you that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I just promoted you to assistant God. Without him, I can't do anything. You know that.
You were talking about before we got kind of cut off there. What were you saying about neocon?
Well, I mean, I guess what vehicle are you using? Any different tactics today than you did with the first two movies in getting people to watch this movie or to recommend to other people to watch this movie? Other than the actual content itself?
That's a really good question, Joe. We don't think about it a lot of times, but I think that every film that we do, we are always evolving our approach and how we get to this. And one way that we've done it with this film is that we've hired a Hollywood actor, Kevin Sorbo, to do the narration.
Right.
Now, people say, well, what difference does that make? Well, number one, he's a very recognizable name, and he's a very recognizable voice. And so when someone is listening to this, they hear his nice, soothing, very recognizable Hercules voice, right? And they're going to be maybe drop their defenses a little bit because of that familiarity, right? And then they have that opportunity to hear the information, actually get some of that information in their head instead of just immediately dismissing it. So we want to try to make these films accessible to the mass audience out there. We're not trying to say that we're quirky, strange, eccentric people that are different than everybody else. We're saying we're exactly the same as everyone else. We just need you to stop for a second and listen to what we have to say.
Yeah. But do you find it just I shouldn't say fascinating. That's the wrong word, but complexity. That there are, intelligent people. Most of the people I know, I'll be very honest with you, a lot smarter than I am. I have friends who are doctors and business people and computer expert. Really smart people. If you gave me a IQ test compared to them, I would be in the idiot class. And yet, when you talk about...
Oh, I find that hard to believe, Jim.
No, I'm serious. No, I'm not. I tell you what, listen, please. But people say, oh, Joe, you're so smart. I said, no, you don't realize how dumb I am. I said, I struggle for everything. But I struggle to understand. I think because I recognize how much I really don't know and I really don't understand, that I really delve into this and try to understand it. And then I come across as if I'm smart, But if I say to myself, oh, I'm smart, I know that Peter Jenkins on the news, or whoever is on the news broadcast, I don't even watch the news anymore. I haven't watched it in years. He says the war on terror, so I repeat the war on terror. You see, we're not even on the same planet, so we can have no discussion, and that's the frustrating part of this whole a phase that we're going through. We're trying to truly understand, but we're relying more and more on mainstream television. Now, a large fraction is going to the internet and looking at alternative news, and unfortunately, there's a lot of bad alternative news, which puts a black mark on this radio program and your movie and everything else. So, I mean, I don't know how we combat that.
That brings up a really good point there that I wanted to mention. You say, there is a difference between some alternative news and the radio shows that are out there. They're not all the same, even if they all have a liberty message or a message of freedom. And we started off being sponsored by another radio show host that I won't mention here, and over the years we've kind of grown apart from that because we've realized that they're approaching this from a fear-based kind of mentality instead of questioning things. I mean, you like to question things. You really like to get in there and let's look at the answers. Let's look at the subject objectively. But there are a lot of other hosts and a lot of other people in the movement that would much rather just get everybody swarmed up into a frenzy of fear and have you afraid of your own shadow if it's up to them. And we personally have shied away from that and say, we're not out here trying to make everybody afraid of the world. We want to empower people by helping educate and reducing the ignorance out there, because people are, by and large, pretty smart. They just haven't had the opportunity to be exposed to real truth.
Yeah. 20 years ago, if someone would have suggested to me that when I turn on the television, I would prefer to watch Russian TV rather than our own main stations, I would have said, you're clinically insane, get some medication very quickly, you're dangerous to society. And today, I never watch mainstream television, never. And yet, I get a lot of information from Russian. Now, I understand that Russian television may also have a bias, but they go into detail. They have independent spokesmen. They will have the Gerald Celentes and the Peter Schiffs, and the Max Kaisers and the people who are totally independent from mainstream media giving their opinion. And you get at least, if anything, you get a variety. Now, not all these people are bought and paid for. I know that for a fact because I know these people. They're not bought and paid for. So you're getting at least their perception of what it is. And now maybe ideologically it may fit the program better, and that's fine. But at least it's their opinion, it's their honest opinion. And if they're going to rap somebody for doing wrong, they don't care who it is. They don't care if it's the Russians, the Ukrainians, the French, the English, the Indonesians, the Brazilian. It makes no difference. A rap is a rap, and that's it. But it seems that we cherry pick what we talk about, and then there's always the bad guy's the same person and the good guy's the same person. And I don't know why America doesn't wake up and say, this is not the real world. The world doesn't work that way.
It's a good question. I look out at the world every day and have a huge question mark in my mind as to, why is it that people are so averse to looking at new information? We live in a society where people are very complacent with their thoughts. And, as long as it doesn't have anything to do with anything deeper than Kim Kardashian and what she's wearing today, or Kanye West and what kind of ridiculous nonsense he's spouting out of his mouth again today. As long as it does, as long as it doesn't have to do with anything outside of the very kind of mundane and shallow materialism that our society is forcing down our throats, then people are fine with it. But boy, you try to get them to talk about anything deep and try to talk about anything that really matters about humanity and where our species is going into the future, and it's like their brain just shuts down. And I think this starts very early on in school indoctrination, and and the way that we're raised. And, I would encourage everyone who's interested more in how that's done to watch our second film, State of Mind. We really go into the methodologies of how our minds are shut down and kept in control.
Yeah, on the second half of this program, we're going to get into the film itself. And I'd like to make another comment. My wife likes that TV series, The Voice, where the, people sing and then they get chosen to be coached by, these famous people. And I'm sorry, I just know, everyone knows everyone's name, when it comes to the music industry. I play the drums a little bit, and I like to listen to some music, but I don't know anyone. I'm just too busy. And I told my wife, I said, I really enjoy watching these wannabes perform in front of professionals and a large audience. I applaud them for it, and most of them are very, very good. I said, but I cannot stand watching The Voice. And she said, why? I said, because I cannot stand the cheering. I mean, everything that anyone does, they scream and cheer as if it's the end of the. I mean, it's the end all of the world. And I said, to me, that type of mentality is so mindless. Every time I hear them cheer, a person can do anything, could say good morning, and then they cheer like crazy and scream. And I said, to me, that's mindlessness. That's mind control. I hate that. I'd rather than say nothing and then just applaud at the end. I mean, I've been to concerts where they've been, the Philharmonic has played, and they've played a masterpiece masterfully. And at the end of the performance, I mean, these are the top musicians in the world. You hear people politely clap. No one's screaming. And yet a person gets up there and sings a song that's already been sung and, regurgitated through the airwaves a million times. They sing that song, and these people, their voices are being thrown out into the street. And I said, what bothers me, it's reminiscence of the mindlessness of America. And that's what bothers me about that program.
I agree completely, Joe. This is the society where we worship mediocrity now. And, back in the day, I remember a time when you would go see live music and you'd go see a live band and everyone would actually pay attention to the band. And when the band was done playing, they would politely clap and then the band would play another song. And now, if you go to a club where there's live music, people are all like, why don't you just turn on the jukebox?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Nobody has any appreciation for any real talent anymore. And society and our media has basically, convinced all these kids that what is really cool is for you to just like kind of lip sync or kind of fake it a little bit and like just do a little. And now we have to worship all this mediocrity. God forbid we teach our kids to actually go play an instrument or learn music theory. Now all you have to do is just turn on the television and watch a couple people twerk their butt a couple times, and now we're getting somewhere.
Right.
And that all that shows is that our society is degraded to the point where if anybody has any real talent, they are shoved to the fringes of society and called freak, eccentric, or whatever. And that just makes every child that sees that scared of truly living their potential. And this is a very sad thing that we're witnessing now.
Yeah, and I find this so sad, but I really think that's reminiscent of really what our society, how our society has, immatured, I should say. Not matured, but immature in that regard. And so I guess I go back to my original question. With a society that, in my opinion, although IQ-wise, purportedly we're getting smarter, it seems that our ability to think rationally is getting eroded. And then how does this film attack that? I want you to think about that because we're going to stop just for 1 minute for station identification. Please do not go away.
You're listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Political talk derived from a historical perspective. Not always palatable, but good food for thought. Pure libertarian talk with host Joe Cristiano. LibertyTalkRadio.com.
Express Test is your go-to company for on-site occupational health testing services. That's right, we said on-site. That means we will meet you at your facility for a free health and occupational safety consultation. Express Test specializes in hearing conservation, respiratory protection, and employee safety. We can help you establish viable programs tailored to your business and employee needs. For your free consultation, call 918-743-2929 or visit us at expresstest.com. That's 918-743-2929 or expresstest.com. Do you find yourself asking, what did you say? Aaron Cristiano of Ranch Acres Audiology has over 25 years of experience helping patients just like you.
Hearing requires conservation. We need to be aware and we need to be responsible for our own hearing health.
Understand more with a little help from Ranch Acres Audiology. Call 918-749-7711. That's 918-749-7711 to learn more. We'd like to thank attorney Constance Squires for her support of Liberty Talk Radio. If you want a comprehensive way to affordably avoid legal issues, call Constance Squires. For a free consultation, call 918-254-9283 or go online at isthyWillDone.com.
This isn't your typical talk radio show. This is Liberty Talk Radio.
Folks, we're back. I think we're back. Yes, we're back. This is Joe Cristiano. You're listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Our toll-free number is 888-773-4496. Please call with your questions, your comments for our guest, 888-773-4496. Austin, are you still on the line? Did we lose you?
No, I am definitely still here.
Okay, there's someone holding on the line for some time. Let's get them on the phone first, and then we'll continue our dialogue.
All right.
Caller, you're on the line. Thank you for calling.
Good morning, Joe and Austin. This is Jim calling from Bixby. How are you guys this morning?
Hi.
Excellent. Good morning.
Great. Hey, Austin, I wanted to just ask you a question. As we've had some other conference calls as an investor in the film, but I don't recall ever hearing or learning from you as you talk about the movie. I thought as a start it might be interesting to hear, one, what has influenced you the most in forming your belief systems and worldview, which obviously is going to impact the direction of and the production of any film that you have your name to. And then as a follow-up question, how did you first get into the film business?
Wow, those are great questions. I think the influence for me started very, very early with reading books by H.G. Wells and Isaac Asimov. Now, a lot of people say, what does that have to do with anything? For me as a child, reading books by, Jules Verne and, a lot of sci-fi writers of the time, it really taught me to think about the world in a different way and to use my imagination. And we live in a world where imagination is not really celebrated anymore. Like Joe and I were just talking about, mediocrity seems to be celebrated. And for me growing up, my parents, especially my mother, encouraged me to read all sorts of books about all sorts of things. But when I got to be a teenager, books by people like Carlos Castaneda and Deepak Chopra and a lot of different authors that just really were able to crystallize some new ideas into our Western culture that have been around for thousands of years. But these people were able to do it in a way that allowed someone from my generation, coming from my neck of the world, we were able to actually understand these things. And so, reading books was really the primary influence. And as I've gotten older, I'm always influenced by people like Joe Cristiano and Art Bell was a big influence on me in the 90s. As somebody who had the courage to just really put out whatever on the airwaves, not really worrying too much about whether it was true or not, but more worrying about giving people a voice and a place to express their own views of the world and things like that were outside of the mainstream. So, anybody like that has the courage to stand up for what they believe in or to allow other people to do that through their medium is a hero in my book, for sure. So,
right.
But as far as going forward, I mean, that's what we're always trying to do, is to integrate more of that courageousness into what we do. So.
Great. And how did? My follow-up question is, how did you get into the film business? How did that lead you?
Right. For me, it started very early. Again, whenever I was about 12, I believe, I made a documentary about gun control as a class project for I think it was History Day project or something. And back then you had to actually edit it all in camera, shot by shot, because you didn't have nice editing systems like you do now. And so I got the bug for it back then by watching a lot of movies whenever I was young. I just always had a knack for it and understood the process of filmmaking, the artistry behind it. And I'm a musician as well. I know Joe said he plays drums. I like to get on the drums as well, but I also play guitar, and I've played in a family band a lot of my life. So I guess, just kind of growing up in an artistic family, these kind of things, you just fall into it, I guess.
Right. Neat. Okay. Well, I'll enjoy listening to the rest of this broadcast, and continued success. Look forward to.
Thank you.
Obviously, look forward to, and I'm excited about the release of the upcoming film, which I know Joe wants to ask some further questions. So I'll get off the phone and just listen in. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Jim.
Right,
appreciate it. Austin, tell our listeners about the film, and just how you decided to produce a film of this nature, of this subject, and why is it important? And of course, I'd like you to promote the film as well. And how do they, where do they see the film? Can they order the film, etc.? We'll say that for the end, but
Sure.
Tell us more about the film itself, the actual core, and how it came about.
Yeah. We were in the process of finishing State of Mind, The Psychology of Control, and one of our associate producers on this film, James Lane, which everyone knows is the director for A Noble Lie and for State of Mind as well. During that process, James Lane was in communication with James Perloff, and a lot of your audience may be familiar with James Perloff. He was is an author who wrote a book called The Shadows of Power, which was published by the John Birch Society, I believe, back in the late 80s. And this is really the quintessential book for understanding how the Council on Foreign Relations formed and how we've gotten to our modern society of globalism and this kind of worship of a globalist society, or a new world order, as some people would call it. James Perloff is the guy who wrote the book on this subject. And so, in communication with James Perloff, we decided to work together on this project. And James was even, despite health issues at the time, he really just believed in this project, and he got behind it 100%. Wrote the script, the narration script. And then later on, we were able to get, people like Kevin Sorbo on board, and then the cast of characters we've interviewed for this film as well. People like Gerald Celente, Vince Swan, G. Edward Griffin. I don't want to give them all away. There's just an amazing cast of characters in this film. And then, you get everybody together, and now we're all collaborating. But really, it was James Perloff and his research for Shadows of Power. And then he has a new book out called Truth is a Lonely Warrior.
Right. That's a fabulous
book. The research for these books
Yes.
went into the making of these films. So.
Right. Yeah. And now, what is actually the main subject, the main point that you want to get across, so when people leave the movie theater or finish watching the DVD, what do you want to be instilled in their mind?
That's a really good question. I ask myself that constantly while we're making the film. But I think for me, now that we're coming down to the end of editing and I've had a chance to really see all of the pieces of this film put together, for me, it's about, is it worth it? Is it worth having our planet and our future as a species destroyed simply to give up control so we don't have to think about world issues to all of these elitists who are controlling things the way they are? Is it really worth allowing our world to be turned into a complete hellish nightmare simply so you don't have to pay attention? You can go watch The Voice, right?
Right.
And while The Voice is great and distraction is great, I think that the real issue I want to bring with this film is that being distracted and having no say-so in what's going on in this world is really not worth it. It's not worth it because at the end of the day, when you leave it up to these people to do for you, they're going to steer us right into the gates of hell. So,
well, in that regard, how do we convince people? Is there a methodology that you use to try to convince people that they should start thinking differently about our governance?
It really depends on the person. Some people I found it's very easy to get through to them because they're already on the precipice of understanding these things themselves. But for somebody that you run into in your family or a friend or whatever that just simply has shut their brain down to the possibility that any of this could be true, I simply take the direct approach and just talk to them like a real person. You don't try to belittle these people because ultimately you were that person at one time too, whether you're awake now or not. You have to understand everybody is in the same boat on this planet. You're not better than them simply because you read a book a couple of years ago and now all of a sudden you think that you know everything. You have to look at it from the perspective that that person truly is your brother and sister on this planet, and they need your help. They're stuck in the darkness, and they need your help. And so I take the direct approach, and I reach out with compassion and empathy to these people, and I say, look, I'm here to help you through this. I know it's scary. Let me walk you through it step by step or whatever it might be. Hey, check out one of our films. This might help you understand a few things better. And approach it from a perspective of trying to help each other, and you'll have much more success in the long run than you will if you're just pointing the finger and trying to cram your ideology down somebody's throat. Their defenses are going to go up, and they're not going to listen to anything you have to say.
What method are you using to promote this film? Are you using the traditional means, whatever that is? And I don't even know what that is, but could you distinguish for us or describe to us how the film is going to be promoted and how the word is going to get out there?
Great. We have a website, FreeMindFilms.com. Anybody can go there and check out our films there. You'll be able to rent them as well as purchase electronic copies or a DVD. So we really have any medium that somebody would like nowadays available. If you want to watch it on you're streaming on your iPad or something like that, you can totally do that through our website. But we're also going to be on radio shows like your own. I was just on Caravan to Midnight with John B. Wells yesterday. Yes. So we're really using the liberty activists and the political-minded people out there that already have audiences such as your own. We're hoping that they get behind us on this. And so far we've had nothing but positive responses from the people in the truth movement, the liberty movement. So I think that within that genre, people already know who we are because of our previous films, and so we're just continuing to reach out to those people. But in terms of new people, we're in discussions right now to get on Glenn Beck's radio show as well on TV, and we're also going to look at getting possibly some of our films, including this film, on cable television like HBO, Showtime, and then all the VOD streaming platforms such as Netflix, Amazon, and Blockbuster's got one, HBO's got one coming out soon as well. So it's just the media now is just not what it used to be 20 years ago. Now you have to diversify into almost every single area you can imagine. But believe me, we're not going to stop until we've covered every corner of this planet.
Yeah, my concern is that are we not preaching to the choir? That must be a concern of yours constantly. You've got to be very, very aware of that, I'm sure. And if you're preaching to the choir, you might as well just pack up and leave, because there's going to be there's going to be no explosion of knowledge out there. It's going to be retained in this small little box, that's not privy to anyone else.
Right. No, absolutely. And we do preach to the choir to a certain degree. Number one, just to let them know that we're still here and that we're still growing as a company and that we're not giving up the fight, but also to encourage those people who are in the choir to maybe go out and get more people into the choir. And that's, what we're really hoping for, because this is a job that's way too big for, Austin Green alone or for Joe Cristiano alone. This is something that every single person who has become awake and aware to political corruption and to the sicknesses in our world that need attention, it's all of our responsibility to get together and to help everyone else. And so that's what we're seeing more and more. So, preaching to the choir, while, you have to be careful not to do that too much, we are also, every single film, we're finding ways to branch out and find new people who are anxious and very encouraged by what we do and anxious to see what we have coming out. And so, yeah, I think that, we have to approach it from a balanced perspective. But we're doing a pretty good job so far.
All right, now, are you going to be previewed at the Cannes Film Festival in France?
Well, I don't think this year, and not with this film. Those film outlets like Sundance, Cannes, they really focus more on stuff that is less difficult to digest for people mentally. I'll just put it that way.
They're concerned more with the movies that have general appeal, in other words, right?
Our response that we've gotten from these people thus far has been very lackluster and very lukewarm. And I think it's just they're not ready for it yet. Maybe another couple of years, because we did just have, I don't know if your audience is aware of this, but the film that was made about Edward Snowden, the NSA whistleblower,
yes,
which I'm sure you've talked about on your show, there was a film made about him called Citizen 4, and it won Best Documentary at the Oscars this year. Now, let's say, well, what's the big deal about that? Well, that's a film about bringing truth to the world and ending corruption, and it won Best Oscar for Best Documentary. So that is a huge leap forward for our genre.
Yeah, that paved the way
like
for you.
Next year, we have a pretty good shot at maybe at least getting nominated for an Oscar next year. So
okay, now what tactics will you be using that is different from what you've done with the past two films in order to broaden the base of viewership and breaking away from preaching to the choir type thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that going with mainstream outlets like possibly HBO or Showtime, the mainstream cable outlets, I think, we've been relegated to the Truth and Liberty radio shows like this, which is not a bad thing, but ultimately we do have to broaden our base, and that's why we're in discussions with, people from the major networks and things like that to bring this information out, because people are ready for it. Whenever you see a film like Citizen 4 win Best Documentary at the Oscars, well, now all the executives at these cable companies and stuff are going, oh, well, hey, maybe now it's the public is ready to see some of this stuff, and ultimately if the audience wants it, they have to deliver the audience what they want. But you never really can determine or predict exactly how the public is going to respond to something like this until you put it out there. But based on what I've seen on the previous two films, A Noble Eye, State of Mind, we feel that the release of this film, especially with someone like Kevin Sorbo on board, and especially with the wide range of voices that we have in this film that is even broader than what we had before, with their audience and our new audience, and then, of course, the new mainstream audiences we'll be going out to, we feel that we're going to reach, probably 10 times as many people with this film as we've ever reached on any
now,
film that
Kevin
we've done in the
Sorbo
past.
obviously is not a household name, but I mean a very well-known name, and maybe he's a household name, but because he did have the number one, he had the number one program for about 5 years. Now, is there any promotion on his part, or I mean from where he is in his environment? Is there any promo, or is he just on the film and then it's entirely up to FreeMind Films to promote it, or does he participate in this at all?
I think that every person that's in this film, from G. Edward Griffin and Rosa Corey and Joyce Riley, every single one of these people. In fact, I was just on Joyce Riley's show recently. They're all behind us on what we're trying to do to get the word out on this film. And so, we anticipate that it won't just be FreeMind Films out there talking about this stuff. We've already seen this. Kevin's going to be out there talking about this film. In fact, we're trying to get him and I on Glenn Beck's show. I mean, that'll be millions of people that will be able to reach.
Yeah, if we get on Glenn Beck, because Glenn Beck
and
right
then
now
as well, all those people like Ben Swan and Adam Kokesh, they all have their own audiences already, and they all agreed to be in this film because they believe in what we're doing. And so, we fully anticipate that they're all going to get behind this as well, and just like you have, and so many others, and so we're going to just keep pushing forward and keep taking the small victories where we can get them. And when we don't win, well, we brush our shoulders off and we say, hey.
Oh yeah, you have to keep on getting up. You just have to, Now, I guess one of the major obstacles is breaking through that perception that anyone who criticizes the establishment is a radical or a kook or mentally deranged. And it's so difficult to break through that, saying that, no, if you stay within the established ideology, your brain is already rotted. It's too late, unless you break away. That has bothered me I've been broadcasting now for 12, 13, 14 years, whatever it is. And that's the obstacle that I always come across is that, are you Republican or a Democrat? And I say, well, I don't talk politics. It's like, oh, you must be a nut. And it's very, very difficult to break that. What about Alex Jones and InfoWars? Are you going to be? I know you promoted your prior films on this program. Will you be doing the same with Alex Jones on this film?
Well, the previous film, we actually had an exclusive arrangement on that film with him, and we felt that the direction of our company is definitely still aligned with what Alex Jones and InfoWars is up to. We just feel like we want to branch out to new audiences. And we don't want to limit ourselves to just one audience. But yeah, I think that we're still reaching out to the InfoWars people, and we'll probably still be on their show. And I have a feeling they'll probably still promote the film. We just don't want people to think that our movies are all about InfoWars and all about Alex Jones. There's so many other people in this movement who have excellent things to say and excellent things to add that we just didn't want to become redundant.
Yeah, so. I applaud Alex Jones for what he's doing and the amount of energy and effort that he puts in trying to get the truth out. My only criticism of Alex Jones is that if you are a newbie to all of this and you have been raised to believe that we have a democracy, a democratic republic, and we vote for the best man and the whole bit, or woman, and everything's happy, and listening to Alex Jones, you immediately put him in the nutcake category, and I really wish that he would change the name of his program and tone it down a couple of notches to appeal more to the masses rather than to those people who are already, belong to the church, if you will,
Right.
And
yeah, I agree, and I think I think he serves his purpose. He's done a lot of really great work to help wake people up out of their slumber and get them to stop being complacent. But I agree with you completely. I think in the long run, he would probably do much more good if he would try to embrace a little bit wider swath of humanity, other than just that narrow band of people that want to hate on the government and fear everything.
Right.
And whatever. I mean, those people have a right to live and a right to express themselves just like I do. But ultimately, I don't think that in the long run, humanity is going to benefit from focusing on the negative and the darkness. I think that we all have to band together, and we have to focus on the love and the compassion and what brings us together.
Yeah, I really wish Alex would have more of a balance. So even if he had people from the dark side, and then he discussed the issues with them, you can see the inconsistency in the dark side. And anyway,
right,
we were gonna,
sure, yeah.
Now we have about 1 minute. I'm going to give you this 1 minute to wrap things up and tell our audience about the movie, how they can get a copy, where they can view it, and whatever else you want to include.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Joe, for having us on the show. Again, you can go to FreeMindFilms.com, FreeMindFilms.com. You can check out our news content and all the movies that we've done in the past. Plus, you'll be able to get pre-sales of Shadow Ring starting about April 5th, somewhere in that neighborhood, and then the full release of the film will come at the towards the end of April. But we encourage everybody to check out our previous films, Noble Lie and State of Mind, as well. That'll help give you an understanding of how we got to Shadow Ring. But then, of course, you'll be able to get it on Amazon. You'll be able to get it on probably, I'm sure Joe Cristiano will be selling it, and I know that Joyce Riley's on board. She's going to be selling it as well, and we've got a lot of other people that are going to be getting on board with this as well. So, really, we're hoping that it'll be everywhere, that you'll be able to just rent it right from your computer through what we call Yekra. Yekra is this amazing new platform that you can see streaming movies to your computer.
Great.
And you'll be able to get that all through our website, FreeMindFilms.com. And we encourage everybody to write us at contact@FreeMindFilms.com if you have any suggestions for future movies or just questions or comments. I always try to get back to everybody who writes us. So.
Okay. Austin, I want to thank you very much for being our guest. It's been a terrific hour. I'm sorry we had difficulty with our connections here, and they had to look at me, unfortunately, all this time. And so to our audience, I apologize. I hope you're wearing blinders. Maybe you would feel better about it. I want to thank you very much. Good luck on the film. And please
thank you very much.
Give me a call at any time if there's any updates that you'd like to present to my audience. Even if it's just 15, 20 minutes or 10 minutes a spot,
sure.
Call anytime. We can fit you in at any time, okay?
I'd love to be back anytime, Joe. Thank you so much for what you do. God bless you.
Thank you. Same to you. Bye-bye now. Wow.
Bye-bye.
Wow, that's interesting, isn't it? If we could only open our minds. The problem is opening our minds, and we are so afraid of looking at the other side. I always beg my audience, please tell me the other side. Present it to me. And what's interesting is that the other side is just as fearful because they're afraid of what they may hear, and it may violate what they already believe. And it obviously it doesn't work very well. Wow, that's kind of... Thank you for lowering that a little bit. This is the end of today's program. We'd like to thank our sponsors for financial support, and we'd like to thank you for listening in. You can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends, and let us hear from you. Our email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. And by the way, you can get information on this film from our website, libertytalkradio.com as well. Remember, folks, as my wife says, you're either allowing your liberties to be taken away or you're striving to protect them. One takes a lot more effort than the other. Until next time, this is Joe Cristiano on Liberty Talk Radio. Stay well, stay tuned.